It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses of all ages, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023, and it is time to get nerdy. Welcome to episode 279 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. I am Maction, and I am joined by my friend, by a connoisseur not only of comedy, but also of all things video gaming, Mr. Lam Galuka, also known as Mr. Nice Guy 425, and for the next hour, we're going to cover topics ranging from news, history, trivia, lawsuits, everything in between as they relate to video gaming. But first, Mr. Nice Guy, it's been a week. It's good to be back. How you doing, man?
Dude, it has been a week. That's what happens when you have a weekly podcast, week between episodes.
Yeah.
Things are good, man. I discovered some new music called Slamilton, which I love mashups. Like, one of my favorite CDs of all time is Jay-Z and Linkin Park Collision Course. It's amazing. And this is actually Space Jam and Hamilton put together.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, have you ever seen the movie Space Jam with Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny?
How dare you, Lam?
You never know.
Of course.
You're acting confused. And have
I
you
don't know,
ever
that's
heard
like
of the
being
play?
like, have you ever seen the Goofy movie?
Well, you never know, dude. But have you ever seen Hamilton as well?
Yeah, I've seen Hamilton and Space Jam.
Okay, so it's like a mashup,
That's wild.
and it's good. I'm not saying like I'm listening to it in the car, but I listened to it and it was clever, and I think it fits within the nerd culture realm of what we do. So I thought that was cool. Another nerd culture thing I wanted to share real quick that has nothing to do with video games, so it doesn't fit in with our news stories. Good Burger 2 trailer just dropped.
What?
So much nostalgia for Good Burger. And I'm so excited for Good Burger 2.
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
That's right.
Wow.
Fun fact. I remember going to see Good Burger. I don't remember what year it came out, but like day of or weekend of. My mom took me and my brother. We were very young. And my dad wasn't into those types of movies, right? I remember going to see the movie, and I was such a huge Keenan and Kel fan, I went and bought the CD, the soundtrack. And that was the first CD that I ever bought, was the Good Burger soundtrack, which I feel explains so much about me.
Oh, only in your incredible taste.
Oh, that's what I meant.
I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, because we're all dudes?
Now, someone in the chat, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but someone said I don't know Good Burger, and that's a shame. It's a crying shame.
That is.
I will be honest, though, like, for me, it's a nostalgia thing more than a, like, oh, yeah, this is an award-winning movie thing, right?
Yeah. Feel like I watched it in, in theaters. Like, that had to have been, like, back in the mid-90s, like 95 to 97, somewhere in there.
So he says his wife is also not impressed that he does not know it. Does that mean that your wife does know it and your wife is cooler than you? Good Burger's a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm also aware of the fact, Mac, we're getting so off topic. A lot of people, in fact, I didn't always have cable growing up because my parents weren't big into TV. But I did have cable for part of my childhood. If you liked Good Burger, a lot of it had to do with the fact that on Nickelodeon, there was a show called All That, and then also Keenan and Kel. And Good Burger was one of the sketches from All That, and they made it into a full-length movie. There's some famous people in the movie. Sinbad is in the movie. Carmen Electra's in the movie.
Yeah.
I believe there's others that are in the movie that made cameos. It's a classic.
Yeah. It occupies this weird sort of space of being big name but also not big at the same time. Like, I don't know how much money they spent on the first Good Burger movie, but like it all had to have been paying for cameos because
Absolutely. Well, Mac, enough about that. Anything else? What's up with you, man? I talked enough about Good Burger and Slamilton. What's up with you, buddy?
Oh, man. Well, there's one particularly cutting thing earlier today. I decided to use a mandolin slicer. You know, that's one of those things that slice vegetables and such. First time trying one out, and of course, I cut my finger pretty bad. Those are shockingly dangerous. So yeah, be careful, y'all out there. I mean, I appreciate, because like I was trying to slice potatoes really thin so that I could make chips. I wanted to make chips to go with
love it.
with some like some sandwiches, and yeah, I was so shocked. So anyway, practice safe vegetable cutting, everybody. That's the PSA for today.
And I've got to say, if Good Burger being my first CD is the most Lam Galuka thing ever, making potato chips is the most Maction thing ever. Like, I got a sandwich. Oh, I'm all out of potato chips. Well, let me just make some. You just have that type of ingenuity. Like, that's a compliment, but it's also hilarious.
I will accept it because it couches me in a good light, but I think it is way too kind to me. But Lam, you are too kind. Thank you.
I try to be. Hence the name Mr. Nice Guy. Well, hey, on that note, Mac, I say we do what we do best. Stop talking about potato chips and Good Burgers and hop right up in that gaming news, my friend. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Mr. Nice Guy, what's new in video gaming?
There's a lot that's new, and we're going to talk about it here on episode 279 of Two Nerds in a Pod, and hopefully my allergies don't ruin the show. Well, Mac, first news story is something very nostalgic from GameInformer.com by Marcus Stewart. Before the 1983 video game crash and Nintendo's subsequent takeover of the industry with the NES, the Atari 2600 reigned supreme. The popular console was pretty much the poster child for late 70s, early 80s gaming, boasting a vast library of titles, etc., etc., etc. Well, here's the thing, Mac. Atari and PlayOn have announced that the 2600 Plus, a modernized recreation of the 4-switch model introduced in 1980. In addition to sharing the same wood grain aesthetics and metal switches, it also includes modern features such as HDMI output, USB port, and support for multiple screen resolutions. The console comes with a new CX40 Plus joystick, faithful to the original, and supports 2 players. The 2600 includes the single cartridge slot and can play original 2600 and 7800 cartridges, including physical versions of newly released titles. And it also comes with a 10-in-1 cartridge, which includes the following games: Adventure, Combat, Dodge 'em, Haunted House, Maze Craze, Missile Command, Real Sports Volleyball, Surround, Video Pinball, and Yar's Revenge. Mac, Atari 2600, not like the Nintendo NES Classic where it's a bunch of digital games, but like taking physical cartridges being re-released. Is this thing gaining an audience? And what's your level of interest?
My level of interest is quite high.
Really?
Mr. Nice Guy, did they mention a price for this?
They did not.
Okay.
So, I take that back, Mac, because it launches on November 17th for $129.99, and you can pre-order it now on Atari's website.
Insta-buy. I'm going to pre-order it after this. So one of the things that I love about this awesome world that we live in is flash cartridges. I have flash cartridges for the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, 64, Genesis, and even in a roundabout way for my PS1. But a console that outputs HDMI resolution, and even though we are talking about the Atari 2600 and 78
Sure.
That have these particularly chonky pixels, because it has to be like that, the ability to play those cartridges, drop another, I don't know what an EverDrive costs for an Atari 2600 these days, but my suspicion is that it's not more than $100. And then, bam, that's the entire library. And there are the occasional new releases of games for the 2600.
Correct.
All that is to say, though, that from what I have heard, just here, right now, I'm probably going to hit the pre-order button because I love that sort of a thing. I don't know if I've shown you a picture of my television setup, but I've got all those old school consoles set up underneath my television, and I feel like there's been an Atari 2600 sized hole for quite some time. So I'd love to remedy that.
So just so you're aware, I believe it, and I'll send you the article. I believe it comes with a joystick. The CX40 joysticks will also be sold separately for $24.99. And they also plan to launch the CX30 paddle controller bundle, which includes the paddle and a 4-in-1 game cartridge for $39.99. So they're like really supporting this. Now, here's my thing. First of all, Ishmobile speaking truth in the chat. $130 is a great price. He points out that that's less than a Raspberry Pi. I thought Raspberry Pis were like $60.
Back in my day, Raspberry Pis were $40.
So I'll have to fact check that. Although, considering that it's including some games, he's probably not that far off. And you're actually getting the physical hardware, right? Like you're getting the wood grain, you're getting all that. So I'm still with him where he's going with this. My thing is I just don't have nostalgia for this console. And so to me, it's kind of like, if I really want to try these games, there's ways of doing it. Steam Deck, et cetera, et cetera. But for people who are really into this or have that Atari-sized hole, great price.
Yeah.
And Mac, one of the coolest things that has come out are these what's that company called? Of course, we're talking and I can't remember. They make the Game Boys, they make the NESs, Analog Pocket. Yeah, so I mean, like there's a market for this. I just didn't know that Atari had that big of a following. Still, let's keep it moving because we got some other really, really cool news stories. Now, this one is probably the biggest one of the week, in my opinion, on Engadget.com by Steve Dent. And Mac, this deals with Microsoft Activision. Microsoft is significantly restructuring its Activision Blizzard merger proposal by selling cloud gaming rights for Activision Blizzard games to rival Ubisoft, it wrote in a blog post late yesterday. That would address a key concern of UK regulators, which blocked the deal in part because of Microsoft's potential dominance in cloud gaming. But nothing is likely to be approved until October 18th. As a result of its agreement with Ubisoft, Microsoft believes its proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard presents a substantially different transaction under UK law than the transaction Microsoft submitted for the CMA's consideration in 2022, Microsoft President Brad Smith wrote. Mac, does this change your view in any way? Because cloud gaming had come up in our discussions before. Microsoft is restructuring the deal to say, hey, we're going to sell this to Ubisoft, one of our competitors. So that's part one of the question. And let's just start there. Does this change your view?
Yes, but not really enough to make too much of a difference. I still am concerned. And to be entirely fair, Activision Blizzard, their management, Kotick and such have, we've talked about it in legalese and in news and how they've created a very negative environment and a bad situation.
On multiple levels.
Yeah, on multiple levels. And it would be hard for things to get worse for the employees under different management. They're probably going to be better taken care of by Microsoft. And that's a huge win. I hope, in my heart of hearts, I would have hoped that Activision Blizzard could get their stuff together and get rid of the people that were making it a bad place to work on their own. But that hasn't seemed to happen. And yeah, but Microsoft coming in will actually probably make effectual and good change for them. But I'm still, in spite of the change for the cloud gaming, I don't think I'm personally convinced that this winds up being a good thing for gamers overall. I want to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. But I just don't see the real tangible benefits. Aside from, and this was pointed out to me by actually a friend and listener of the show, Pocket Dragon, did point out that one of the things that he sees as a big problem for the, with respect to gaming generally, is that, my big thing is I want to be able to play the game, right? And he's just like, but this will make things so much more playable for other people. And I have to acknowledge that there are very much benefits. But I just don't know if those benefits are going to be short-term at a long-term cost, and I'm worried about the status quo changing for that reason. So I'm an angry old codger, but it's not like I don't believe that there aren't benefits that we're going to get from it. You know what I mean?
Sure, and the thing that's interesting is Ubisoft has no obligation, unless there's kind of like a wink, wink, nod, nod, to not somehow finagle things to get these games on PlayStation via cloud gaming. Now, it could just be that I'm completely misunderstanding how this is going to work, but I just find it super interesting that Microsoft is willing to give up the cloud gaming rights to Activision games to a third party that is not necessarily loyal to Microsoft. I just think that's weird. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around it. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this. Well, we got time for one more news story, Mac. Half-Life or Destiny 2? What do you want to hear about?
Oh, don't make me choose. Half-Life.
All right, we'll talk about Half-Life. So this is from NVIDIA.com by Andrew Burns.
Half-Life 3 confirmed.
I wish, but we'll talk about that. NVIDIA RTX Remix is a free upcoming modding platform built on NVIDIA Omniverse, designed to enable modders to create and share #RTXOnMods for classic games, each with enhanced materials, full ray tracing, NVIDIA DLSS, etc., etc. We released Portal with RTX, a high-fidelity reimagining of Valve's timeless classic, as an example of what's possible with Remix. Then we turned the tools over to the community modders who remastered Portal Prelude. Today, we're unveiling Half-Life 2 RTX, an RTX Remix project, the in-development community remaster of one of the highest-rated games of all time, Valve's Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 RTX is being developed by 4 of Half-Life 2's top mod teams, working together under the banner of Orbifold Studios. Using the latest version of RTX Remix, the modders are rebuilding materials with physically based rendering properties, adding extra geometric detail, etc., etc. So, Mac, here's my question for you. Valve has always been pretty cool about being open source, allowing modding, allowing their assets to be used. But in 2020, we got Half-Life Alyx. So we knew Half-Life was not dead. Now we're getting a pretty high-fidelity mod of Half-Life 2. What do you think the reason is for these remasters when it's clearly not to make money? Why is Valve allowing this? Like, why is this such a big thing?
Man, what a fantastic series of questions. And I'm afraid I only have real solid thoughts on just one of those. And that is that it seems as though Valve generally just wants the game to be played and just wants people to have fun with what's going on. And maybe that's me putting a whole lot of, sort of goodwill onto Valve and their things. Maybe that's me being way too kind to them. But it just feels like in every way, kind of like you said, Mr. Nice Guy, they seem to be very cool with modding. They seem to be very cool with this, that, and the other. And that just goes very far for me. But man, as to everything else, I don't know. I'd love to think that that this is playing into their hands, if you will. That they're like, yeah, absolutely, let's get people back on Half-Life 2 and this fan-made mod in order to bring the graphics up to snuff and make it look pretty and awesome is going to get a whole bunch of people playing Half-Life 2 all over again, and then bam, we can drop the news about Half-Life 3.
And I think that's part of what it is. It's been a joke for a long time that Valve is allergic to threes, the number 3. We literally have Portal 1 and 2. We have Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. We have Half-Life 1 and 2 and Half-Life Alyx, I guess. But never a third. And I just can't help but think that they want this new generation of gamers who maybe didn't experience it to play it. I don't believe that Half-Life Alyx came out simply to sell the index, because Half-Life Alyx could be played on any virtual reality headset. So I just think that within the next 3 to 4 years, we get Half-Life 3. And it'll be interesting to see if it's PC, if it's console, if it's both. I don't think it will be virtual reality. I think that it'll absolutely be a flat screen game, but I'm excited at that possibility. What did Ishmael say? He said, Valve is one company I'm more willing to ascribe some goodwill to. I'm probably biased, though. No, I'm the same way. He also says, I do think high-fidelity mods can add sales to old games. 100%. Mac, what were you going to say?
I was going to just say, in the interest of full disclosure, like, I feel like Valve has primarily been very good to me, both as a gamer as well as, when we showed up, a couple of us, to E3 back in 2012, Valve was really quite cool. When we were there at the show, they were cool. Of course, Ubisoft was super cool to us too.
Yeah, 100%.
I've got a lot of goodwill as well for Valve, and I know that they've been really cool about what was it, Mr. Nice Guy? You had an issue with one of your things.
If you look back there up on the ceiling, you can you can't see it in the stream shot. It's kind of whited out, but you can see my Valve Index base station. And long story short is that one of them broke out of warranty, and they were like, yeah, we'll send you new ones. And then, because I had just moved, I had my old address on file. And so they sent it through my own fault to my old address. And I messaged them again. And I don't even know if the guy who bought my old house ever sent it back. But they were like, yeah, we'll send you another one. And they sent me another one because of my own stupidity. So, Valve has my love forever.
Yeah. Valve has earned a lot of goodwill from us on this show, and I feel like it's worth just putting it out there that, we've had a lot of good experiences with Valve, and so of course we kind of want to ascribe some goodwill to them. Nice guy Valve.
100%. And that's been our news for the week.
Well, now we turn to the past. And I would like to start by mentioning something that came out in 2013 for PC and Xbox 360. That would be Splinter Cell Blacklist. Now, I find this to be particularly topical because one of those things that we saw at the E3 when Lom and I went together was we got some pretty nice treatment by Ubisoft, specifically vis-a-vis Splinter Cell Blacklist. And for many years, we wore our Blacklist shirts that we got there at the event. We wore them together. So just lots of good times there. But Mr. Nice Guy, how did you like Blacklist as a game, though?
I thought it was great. Splinter Cell really started to evolve with Splinter Cell Conviction. It became less about stealth and more about using whatever tools you had at your disposal, whether it was explosives, whether it was just shooting a lot to get through the level. And I feel like Blacklist really embraced that, but also gave you the freedom to do levels the way you wanted to. Most importantly, Mac, multiplayer was fire. Spies vs. Mercs was so much fun, and a few months ago they shut that down. So there's no way to play Splinter Cell multiplayer on that game anymore.
Man, I'm so sorry to hear that. To that end, 2013, 2023, almost a decade of being able to play Spies versus Mercs. Tell me, was that long enough for that mode to be supported, or should it have been supported longer?
No, I think they supported it long enough, man. And the reason why is simply because the community wasn't there. The game sold poorly back in 2013, so there was never any DLC, right? But I'm realistic. We can't support games forever when people aren't playing them. So I get why they shut it down.
I hold different opinions, but Blacklist is not my game. But I'm glad that you are satisfied with that support. And honestly, for a game that didn't sell that well, a decade of support on the multiplayer side is really big. And I mean, that's a really big good faith effort on their part. So hats off to them. Let's see. Let's pop back a little bit farther in time to 2007, to the release of a game for the PC and Xbox 360. And Mr. Nice Guy, I'm gonna just go ahead and give a famous quote from the game and see if you know which one it is. I'm Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
From 2007? Is that BioShock?
Heck yes, it is BioShock, Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah. Okay.
A fantastic game. If you haven't played BioShock, you kind of owe it to yourself to make sure it's on the list. I know it sometimes winds up on like top 100 games of all times lists, and I think rightly so. It did a lot of really amazing things with respect to atmosphere. But one of the things that makes it such a fantastic game for me is not just because of the time in my life when it came out, but also Andrew Ryan, voiced by Armin Shimmerman. Quark from DS9 is probably among his most famous roles, but for those of you who like Ratchet and Clank, he was also the voice of Dr. Nefarious.
Love that game. Those games.
Yeah, right? Great voice actor, and just good game. Good, solid, enjoyable experience. I'm going to bounce a little bit farther back to 1987. This last week, the release on the Nintendo Entertainment System of The Legend of Zelda, which I believe was the first console game where you could actually save your progress. Everything previous had been done with passwords or things like this, but this is the first time that we got those saves. Now, it wouldn't be the first time that we had seen saves in video games, generally, because we can, because there are plenty of computer games previous to that also had them. But for consoles, yeah, this is where we find our first game save. In addition to all the other cool, groundbreaking things that the first Legend of Zelda really brought to the table. Well, now, Mr. Nice Guy, time for the big one. Something that might be a little bit surprising.
Okay.
It happened back in 2011, or at least it stopped happening back in 2011. And that would be the country of Greece finally ended their video game ban that they started in, can you guess what year?
I'm going to go with 96.
Thank goodness that you are wrong. 2002 is when they started their video game ban.
Okay.
And yeah, it had been in place from 2002 to 2011, and because it involves legalese, I'll talk a bit more about it later. But this last week in 2011 is when they finally walked that back. And while there are other historical things that went on, I think that's where I'll stop it for today. So that's been video game history for us.
Awesome. And now it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for Indie Game of the Week, a segment where we talk about a game that may need more attention and let you know if it needs your attention. Well, Mac, today we have a game that I got quite a while ago, and I've been playing it regularly. Wanted to make sure I played enough of it to really be able to give an honest review. That game is Ellipse, Elypse. Developer is Hot Chili Games. Publisher is PID Games and East to West Games. I believe Hot Chili Games is based in France. They were kind enough to provide this game as a review copy, but it will not influence my opinion. And Mac, this is one that I was interested in, but you were not really as interested in, which is totally cool. We have different styles of games that we like. So this is on Steam, released May 17th, 2023. Cost is $14.99, and the description says, embark upon a tragic tale and discover the ravaged world of Ellipse. Fight your destiny in an arduous 2D adventure, story-rich platformer, in a mesmerizing and mysterious world. So, Mac, the first thing that I will say about this game is that it's gorgeous, and it runs really, really well on the Steam Deck. In fact, this is the type of game that you want to take with you on the go, because it's one of those games where there's a lot of trial and error, where there's a lot of frustration, and you may not want to sit in front of your TV for hours grinding this, but you may want to get a few minutes in before bed. You may want to get some time in on the bus if you ride the bus. Maybe even if you're jogging or on your exercise bike. This is the type of game you pick up and play. I would say this game is a cross between Hollow Knight in terms of look and Celeste in terms of gameplay. The thing that I both loved and hated, Mac, is that the way you get around in this game is almost like the way you get around in Celeste. There's a lot of, not platforming, but like almost like teleportation moves where you're going like this angle and then this angle and then this angle, and you've got to kind of navigate your way through the world, avoid touching walls. At some points, there's even what's funny about that.
No. Carry on.
At some points, there's even put some time in while you drive. Someone says in the chat. That's funny.
Yeah, that's what I was chuckling at, was the put in some time while you drive.
If you're in a Tesla, I guess. I guess the thing that frustrated me about this was Celeste. I don't remember there ever being a moving level where like the level is moving, but you're also trying to do some precision platforming. And in this, there's some points where it's like the level is moving, and that just drove me nuts. I will say the boss battles are challenging, but not punishingly difficult. The story is great, and there's upgrades that you can have some level of choice in. So when I think of the perfect video game, other than the movement, this is like a B plus A tier platformer. It's really, really, really good. It has enough to frustrate me into wanting to play more, so it's not too easy. But the movement, man, just like that precision platforming. We talked about Planet Cube Edge earlier in the year, and how that game for both of us was well made but a little frustrating. This game almost reaches that level of frustration at some points, where you feel like the game is laughing at you. But it made me want to come back for more. So to summarize, I would recommend this game. If you liked Celeste, you will love this game. If you liked Hollow Knight, you might like this game, because it's mostly just Hollow Knight design in terms of the level and the way the bosses move. But if you're an indie lover for $14.99, I don't think you can go wrong here. So shout out to them for providing this game. Well done. You made a really, really beautiful, great game. And I hope more people play this. By the way, it only has 104 reviews. And it absolutely should be played more. This could be, if it got the attention it deserved, a Game of the Year candidate. Just because people really love this type of stuff. People just don't know about it. So, great game.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I passed on because I didn't think it was for me, but Mr. Nice Guy is certainly making me rethink that stance. Well, now that we've taken a look at something that's already here that needs some more love, maybe something that needs some more love to get off of the ground, perhaps?
Let's do it.
We call this Kick or Kick Start. I've posted a link in the chat to a crowdfunding project called We Stay Behind. Let's talk it over. This indie team is based out of Germany. They're looking at they were looking at about $27,000 to reach their goal, 25,000 euros. So that's, why not everything converts so nicely, because it's round numbers in euros, not so much in dollars. That has already accomplished its goal. If you are looking to get in on this thing, they've got $20 is where they put for a copy as part of the Kickstarter. So what is the game? It's a third-person, single-player experience, very atmospheric, and the general idea is that you're at this sort of secluded little town that used to be kind of a tourist destination, has a national park and everything, but there's a comet that's coming and is going to strike there and destroy the place. And you're a reporter headed there to, find out why there are some people who are refusing to leave the area. So it's a little bit detective work, a lot of it atmospheric, and no platforming to speak of in this one, of course, but lots and lots of vibes, right? So as some of the inspirations for this project, they cite media like Twin Peaks. They cite sort of slightly, but not quite, almost horror sort of things going on, but a lot more psychological horror things going on. at certain levels, they're talking like if they can hit 29,000 euros, there'll be, a bit more, there'll be like DLC to go and do a bit more exploring in the forest, in the areas, instead of being quite so compact to the town. But the town has a lot of, character and a lot of outdoorsiness to it. So it's not like you feel like it's a city. It feels like a quaint little town. Anyway, I could say more, but I'll keep on going to something up here, is that it does have a demo that you can try out if you're interested. It's somewhat short. I think it comes in at around 20, maybe 30 minutes, maybe more if I hadn't been quite so on, goal focused, but had decided to poke around the town a bit much. And it has some lovely subtlety on the creepy. Even gave me some great ideas for maybe adding a little bit of creep to future sessions of D&D or GURPS. Some good stuff. But anyway, yeah, it has. Is it fair to say, Mr. Nice Guy, that it has a look that's kind of reminiscent of a sort of minimalist cell shading? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I would give you that 100%.
Okay. Well, that's kind of my big things to say about it. What are your takes on this? I know that I'm, just throwing this at you with no pre-planning on this, but anything strike you?
Yeah, so just looking at it, there's certain aspects where it has kind of a limbo vibe. Or even Inside, if you've played. I know you've played Inside.
Indeed.
That kind of like side-scrolling, hey, look what's happening in the background. But also, it's clear that this has some 3D environments and some text-based elements as well, where you have some elements of choice. So I like that. I was telling my wife the other day, I need more cozy games in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say cozy games, I mean like just stuff without guns and anger and frustration. Like
less pressure.
Yeah, just like some chill games where I'm not thinking about ammo, and just kind of relaxing. Now, this does have creepy vibes, like you said, but I like the vibe that this gives off. Those are the positives. The negative is I just don't think it would be fun to play. Like, I think it would be interesting, but I don't see myself playing this and having a good time.
Maybe it's just because of how it speaks to me and speaks to my sensibilities, but I think I tried the demo and I had a pretty good time of it. I think I would really enjoy the full experience personally. And something I forgot to put out there is that the estimated delivery on the complete game is March of next year, which is a pretty quick turnaround as compared to some Kickstarters that we see. And the demo that they have out there, the only fault I could find with the demo was that there were some things that were still in German as opposed to English, in spite of having selected English as the language. But I mean, like, I understood it, thanks high school German, but it was just like a little thing here or there, like the missing poster was like the thing where it's just like, you're in front of a missing poster, press A to read it, and that sort of pop-up was still in German, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure it'll be ironed out in time, but that's the only thing that I can say about it that wasn't very impressive. But everything else, I was quite impressed by the...
What's the buy-in for a copy of the game?
$20 is the buy-in for the game, for the base. Of course, there's other things. You can pay more to get the soundtrack. There's, things that'll add on an art book. And eventually, I think some of the things that you'll get is like the collector's edition up at 75 euros, which is 82 US dollars, gives you, they'll send it to you on a, I guess commemorative might be the right word, but a commemorative USB stick that has, the game files, but also has is branded like the game. And a printed hiking map of the area, like what you would have gotten if you had gone to
awesome.
the visitors center and pulled a map. And I have such a soft spot for maps. So obviously that stands out to me. Anyway, all that is to say that I like the look of this stuff.
Yeah, I've never been more neutral on a game, and it's tough because Kick or Kickstart is an all or nothing segment, and so I'm in a weird position. But what's your vote, man?
Mine is Kickstart. I like the vibe. The price is about right. It's right there on the high end of where I like to consider for Kickstarted games where we're taking a risk. But the playable demo really won me over.
See, and that's, I guess, where some of the separation comes, is that I haven't played this at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can say if I saw a game like this on Game Pass, where it's quote-unquote free, like I've paid my subscription and now I have access to all these games, this game is not going to hook me in. And I just think there's something bland about it that just doesn't draw me in. And I don't see how it really is drawing in anyone, because who is this aimed at? It's not aimed at lovers of a certain genre. It's not aimed at people based on nostalgia. So I guess something about their branding is just lacking to me, even though it's not for me. It's a lack of good branding, I think. And so for me, this is a kick.
Okay. Well, we don't always agree, but the one thing we always agree on is that we wish everybody the best.
Absolutely.
This looks like this project is going to be funded. We hope you guys smash your stretch goals, and not least of which because somebody here wants to walk around in the woods, but also because, we love the passion and we love what people are doing. So while it is a kickstart for me and a kickstart for some of those who are here with us live, good luck and thanks for being awesome.
Love it. Well, now it's time for Nerd Flex.
Ooh.
A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the hosts. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. And Mac has an announcement.
It's true. About every fourth episode, we have a sound test. You guys are so good about getting your questions in and challenging us. It's time for us to challenge you. So I've selected a mystery sound from somewhere, somewhen, somehow in video games.
It's a mystery.
And what we'll do is we'll play that. And if you can identify what it comes from, let us know on social media, Twitter, reach out to us directly, hit us up on Discord, and if you are the first one to be correct, then we will provide you with a special prize, lovingly handcrafted by me and sent to your door. But good luck, everybody. You'll need it. Well, that's the sound test. This one for episode 279, and there are still others out there if you're having trouble with this one specific. So, good luck.
Love it. Well, we got our first question live in the chat. And by the way, if you're here live, you have a job to do. Get a multiple choice gaming-related question in the chat. We'll use nothing but our noggins to try to answer it. This is from Ishmobile. He says, in Myst, how many marker switches are there on the island? 8, 10, 4, or 7? I'm going to lean on you for this one, Mac. 8, 10, 4, or 7?
Okay, I have played Myst, but the one that was more a part of my repertoire was Riven, the sequel to Myst. And, I feel like the answer, I'm leaning toward 4 in marker switches because I have nothing to go on aside from pure guess.
4, final answer. We'll wait to see what he says. Matt!
There are 8 marker switches, a number that can be used to solve a puzzle and learn some helpful lore. Very nice. I feel as though I have lost some credibility with this crowd, but hopefully these next questions, we can make some of that up.
No worries. And we've got a question from our test bank, which I think is a good question. I don't know the answer, but I bet we could work our way through it. This is a Mario question. Which Mario game has worlds based on places known for conspiracy theories?
Oh, right. I feel like the answer to this one is what's the Game Boy Mario?
Ooh, Mario Land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's pyramids, there's I feel like there's a bunch of like conspiracy theory adjacent places in those in Mario Land.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's even like hieroglyphics on the walls in one of the levels, which is funny because it actually, for a minute, I thought Mario 3, because that second world, Desert World,
Has a
is
pyramid.
like pyramids and stuff. But Little Big Land is just like completely made up world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's Mario Land, the original one for Game Boy, and that's our final answer. Dude, you're absolutely right. It's Super Mario Land. You got your credibility back.
Whew, okay, now do we lose it on the third?
Let's find out. Now, you'll have to remind me if we've done this one before. This is a Sega question because I go randomly. I just hit the random button. What is the name of the 3-part light gun for the Genesis and Mega Drive?
So I know this one because do you remember? Not because I ever had it, but it was one of the things that they held up in those hearings about video game violence. They're like, look at this gun that Sega Genesis puts out. This light gun. Do you know what they call it? They call it the Menacer.
That's what it's called?
Pretty sure. 79% sure.
Ooh, I'll go with 79% any day of the week. Menacer, final answer. And you were exact. Well, it's Menacer. It's not the Menacer. But we'll give it to you. It's a tough question. Hey, that's been Nerdflex, y'all.
All right. Well, now we turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
I am not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. And I kind of built you up, Buttercup, just to let you down because I mentioned that I was going to talk about Greece's ban on video games. However, I did promise last time a breakdown on the Knight v. Wada suit. That's the and so I gotta keep to my previous promises. So I'll talk legal to you about that, but you won't want to miss next time where we talk about the video game ban in Greece. And believe it or not, because of the weirdness of, just the way the documents were stored, I had to print off a copy of the legal speak and use Google Translate from my phone to translate the Greek text because it was stored as like an image, not stored as like, not stored as like text that I could copy and paste and, run in through a translation. Anyway, point being, I went through some extra steps for you. It's all for you. But that will wait till next time. So don't miss next time. Video game ban in Greece. We'll talk about it. But for now, Knight v. Wada. So I previewed last time that there had been some venue changes, right? That had gone from California to Colorado, and that changed hands with respect to judges and case numbers and everything. And as a result of moving from California to Colorado, laws are a little bit different in Colorado than California, as you might expect. And so their second amended complaint, specifically amended because it's now in Colorado instead of California, and so you have to do some tailoring, it lists 9 causes of action with respect to WADA. And those causes are racketeering, unfair competition, false advertising, intentional misrepresentation, non-disclosure, consumers' legal issues, breach of contract, breach of good duty of faith and fair dealing, and breach of the Colorado Consumer Protection Act.
Wow.
So that's 9 things, and a lot of them have a lot of overlap. But because of that overlap, I'll just focus on number 1, because of, the interest of time, and also because RICO is kind of the hot button legal charge of the month anyway. So what is RICO? RICO stands for Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act. This was specifically a type of legal framework developed to go after organizations that were doing things that were otherwise difficult to go after, often because of the organizational structure or the distributed nature of their things. It was hard to pin on the boss the actions of the underlings, so early on used to go after like mob bosses and things like that. So what you need for RICO is persons, your actors, an enterprise, actions taken in furtherance of said enterprise, and a harm or injury, as we would say it in legal speak. So in this case, the persons, basically the people who are in charge of WADA and heritage auctions, some of whom happen to be present in both organizations, and that is a big sticking point of this whole thing. Number two, the enterprise, and I'm going to quote from paragraph 124, quote, "The enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members functioned as a continuing unit for the common purpose of running up the prices of retro video games to increase the value of their own collections and business interests, to increase prices for grading services of WADA, and to increase sales and auction fees for heritage auctions," end quote.
It's despicable. It's despicable.
If true, it is absolutely despicable. One of the things that they do lay out in paragraph 24 of the complaint describes how both WADA and heritage auctions are structured so that their prices or their cuts are based off of the price of the video games in question. Really nailing down that both WADA and heritage auctions have every incentive to inflate game prices to get more money off of higher priced games. So let's hop from the enterprise, so persons, enterprises, now over to acts. And that's any act that pushes the enterprise forward. So they cited things such as public statements, the appearances on TV, such as that Pawn Stars episode, interviews that they did hyping their games as having, and this is, I believe, this is a paraphrase, not a quote, but I think it was phrased this way, that one of the guys from WADA described their games as having limitless value, or there is no ceiling to how high these prices can and will go. And such. And these types of things are cited as, these are absolutely people participating in the pump side of basically a pump and dump style scheme. Then we get to the last bit in the RICO, the injury. And I am going to, skip around a bit because there's lots of words that I'm truncating down, but generally paragraphs 135 and 136 talk about the injury here. Quote, "Each of the plaintiffs has suffered a concrete and distinct injury. At a minimum, the payment of fee for grading services that were not timely provided. Those injuries to businesses or property stemmed from the predicate acts of the enterprise." As an aside, it was not a especially large part of it, but one of the things that was in there was that WADA was not grading and giving back the games that they graded in the time frame that they promised and took money for, and that was another part of their sort of scheme, keeping some people with valuable things from participating at a time when prices were high because they had stuff in there. It's a whole ball of wax. I'm back to quoting again. "Additionally, financial losses when the value of the graded games declined after suspect activities were reported on by independent journalists. Plaintiffs," that's, the people who were wronged here, "paid inflated fees for grading services because of the predicate acts, because of the manipulation. WADA retained video games submitted by collectors for far longer time periods than advertised, depriving customers of even the opportunity to participate in the market during those times." End quote. So there's a lot of interesting information in there, such as, for example, somebody a guy named Halprin, who has connections on both being the co-founder of Heritage Auctions as well as on the board in WADA, being the person who bought that Super Mario Bros. 1 game in 2019 for $100,000. which is cited as one of the things that really started kicking off all of this. And they also specifically call out sales of Super Mario 64 complete in box, or new in box rather, dropping from 1.4 million at the hype all the way down to 57,000 after people, after the reporting about this from the journalists, basically after people started realizing what was really up there. So, all that being said, this is the amended complaint. We are about to go into the discovery phase in September, and that should be when we start to get real bombshell stuff. But just in case you were curious about what RICO is, Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations, those are the things you need. People who did a thing, an enterprise that they were engaged in, acts in furtherance of it, and injury, and if they can prove a number of these acts that were actually done, then anybody who was a part of the chain can go down for what's going on. So that's why RICO is a thing, and maybe that also sheds light on other, newsworthy RICO things that are going on right now. But don't take criminal advice from not a lawyer. This is just legalese.
Love it. And that's why I don't pay to get games graded. I think it's absolutely unnecessary.
There's more stuff that I didn't go into, like, for example, how WADA suddenly became the premier grader because of heritage auctions. Point being, there's more there. Couldn't go into it all. We would need lots more time.
100%. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at time. So thank you for tuning in to episode 279. But before we go, one last segment called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing, where we talk about the cool, nerdy stuff we've been into across all platforms. And if you're here live, you have a job to do. Let us know what you've been watching and playing so Mac and I can check it out. Mac, what you been watching and playing the past week?
So I've not been doing much, but I have been playing Vernal Edge. I also played a little bit of Mario Kart 64 today, this very day. Got my backside handed to me on that one.
Did you play on original hardware?
I did play on original hardware. Had a friend over for lunch, and yeah, it was great. And we did Mario Kart 64 afterward.
Love it.
As for watching, though, I have been watching Arcane, which I know came out a while ago on Netflix, but I'm just catching up to it now. That's pretty much it for me, Mr. Nice Guy. How about you?
So we've been rewatching the Guardian of the Galaxy movies, just watched Guardians 2, and now I can finally watch the third one, which I have not seen yet on Disney+. So that's been fun. Watching a lot of Steam Deck mod videos still on YouTube, and loving that. And Billions, I love that show. What a great show. Corruption, not a good thing, but super cool show. If you like the markets and some of the stuff that goes into why some of these rich people are maybe not the most honest. So anyway, good show. And then another one, as far as what I've been playing, Mac, did you know that Super Mario Advance 4 overseas had e-reader levels that were exclusive to the game, that you could only play if you had the e-reader and if you had the cards? And Super Mario Advance 4 is effectively Super Mario 3. So there's a bunch of Super Mario 3 levels out there that people in the U.S. have never played because it was never released in the U.S. Well, when Nintendo Switch added it to Nintendo Switch Online, it was a rhetorical question. They added those levels. And so I've been going back and playing those Mario 3 levels, and they are awesome. And I told you I needed a cozy game, and that has been my cozy game this week. And then another game that we just got recently that we will review in the next couple weeks. And some Fallout 76, and that's it.
Awesome. Well, as for our viewers, I see The Simpsons, Taken, and 10th Kingdom playing Project Zomboid, Apex Legends, Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, and Ultimate Chicken Horse. I recognize some of those as games.
Well, Mac, why don't you take us home, buddy?
Sure. Thank you so much for being here, for being a part of episode 279. We appreciate you. And we appreciate you whether you're here live or listening after the fact. Video games are what we love, and we're thrilled that you would share that with us. Be sure to tune in next time. Most Tuesdays, of course, at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, here at twitch.tv/2nerds-in-a-pod. That's with the number 2. And you can see us live and participate, send in those nerdy trivia questions, and share the things that you are into as well. But until next week, be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy.
Good Burger 2 is coming. Deuces, y'all.
Bye.